All right, welcome to BS3 Radio YouTube page. We got another video tonight recapping The Last Dance, episodes 7 and 8. We got Courtney Harden to my left. We got T Mack at the bottom. We go back, way back. If y'all know anything about me, you know who he is. And then we got Al High at the bottom. And then we got our Pops diagonal for me. So how's everybody doing?
Doing good. Good.
Doing great.
Good, man. Yes.
Good. All right, man. So episode 7 and 8, and it really dived deep into Jordan, talking about his dad, with his dad passing, talking about him leaving, going to play baseball. There was a lot of different aspects. Let's start off with Ty, since you're new. Talk about episode 7 and 8. Also, since you haven't been on, talk about The Last Dance as a whole.
Oh, man, I mean, the collection as a whole has been great. Growing up and seeing Jordan in his heyday, because we got the good parts of Jordan, right? We got when he was winning chips, all those. We didn't get to see those years where he was getting beat by Detroit, or we wasn't really into it when he was getting beat by Detroit and stuff, but we really got him when he started winning, when he was beating the Suns and, of course, the Seattle series and things like that. So it's been really good and enjoyable, seeing them recap his entire career and just the Bulls in general. For me, I think episode 7 and 8 really showed his passion and his determination to win. That was on display. You saw just the aggressiveness, his competitiveness on the floor, off the floor, in practice and things like that. And you essentially see them call him an asshole, right? He's an asshole. but it translated to winning, right? And so it's one of those things where I've heard coaches say hey, certain players get away with things because they win, right? And it's you can almost get away with those things when you are literally the best player on the floor each night and you have that hard work and determination that you're putting in every day. So I love that part. And then also you got to see the passion and the relationship between him and his dad, which I thought was important for just people to see that father-son relationship. So that really stood out to me. I really enjoyed that piece. But just overall, so it's been great. It's been great, man.
Yeah. All right. Al, we're going to talk about episode 7 first. So talk about episode 7, Al. Kind of what were some of the points that stuck out for you?
Man, just him being tired after the 3rd championship, but how he was planning to retire after the 92 Dream Team. And one of the reasons why he came back for that 3rd title run was because it was a competition in his mind. He was like, I want to do something that Bird or Magic hadn't done, which was win that at that 3rd chip. So to me, that was a pretty significant piece. And then the whole thing with his retirement, because growing up, I thought he retired because his father had passed away. But he was getting ready to he even talked to his dad about retiring before his father passed. So watching the media circus with his retirement after his dad died, it kind of looked like to me a little bit of the O.J. Simpson trial. Where were you at when you heard the verdict of the O.J. Simpson case? That's looking at all them people, looking at those TV screens at the press conference. That's what it reminded me of. Even though I was 7 or 8 years old when Michael retired. I remember watching the news and hearing about all that stuff, but not really understanding and comprehending what really happened. So those particular things stood out to me.
Yeah. Courtney?
Man, this to me was the best episode of the whole documentary right now. Besides the first 2, this one really broke it down. I mean, like I was telling you guys earlier, we had so much to unpack. So I took some notes. I said, let me get into the book and take some notes, because there's a lot. There was a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So I got the notebook. So I episode 7, he said the relationship with his dad. We knew that he had that great relationship because you saw all the pictures. His dad was always there with him throughout everything, from college, high school, college, and the pros. But it really broke down that great relationship that he had with his dad. So I thought that was very interesting. And then it talked about when his dad passed away, they talked about the gambling and the whole thing with David Stern gave him a secret suspension. And now I heard about that too. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, if it was a conspiracy, we've heard all the conspiracy theories. If there was a conspiracy of him saying that, okay, I'm gonna let you go away for a year and a half, why was it 18 months? If it was a suspension, it should have been a year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. 18 months, that's just an odd time, or whatever. So that to me, that's why I never believed that conspiracy of that, because for one, if David Stern wanted to get rid of Michael, and he said, okay, I just need you to go away for a year or 2 years, why would he do that when Jordan was his biggest commodity, his biggest money maker, coming off that third championship? Why would he just say, you know what, you could go away, and then the NBA ratings were going to go down? Like that to me just never added up to me. So I think that was a big thing. Another thing, like you said, with the gambling and his retirement, it was like a circus. It was like when you got CNN, NBC News, ABC News, not just ESPN and ABC, this was a big thing. I remember where I was in 93 when he did retire that year. I was 14. I was in high school. So that was huge. So those were some of the key moments for me with episode 7.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things was how they accused him of somehow being involved with his dad's death. I thought that was horrible. Like that is the absolute worst thing that you could say to someone in that particular scenario, is to blame somebody for their own father's death, which is one of his best friends. To me that would have hurt me more than anything else. Go ahead.
I was about to say, it was one of those situations where it seemed like Jordan was so perfect, you had to find something wrong with him. And like the media they was kept on searching and searching and searching, right? So when his dad passed away, it's like, oh, gambling finally caught up to him type thing. It's like, nah, man, come on. Like, this dude ain't gonna have, this dude ain't gonna have his dad whacked. Come on, it's ridiculous.
Right.
But they really pushed that narrative pretty hard for a minute.
Yeah.
They did. And just before, I was gonna say one more thing. If the gambling thing, like, if he wasn't gambling on his own sport, what was the harm of it? You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like a Pete Rose situation where he actually gambled on baseball. They've never found any evidence that Jordan was gambling on basketball. He just had a gambling. We said he had a gambling competitive problem. That's it. That's it. There was nothing illegal about that. So
it's only a problem if you can't pay it off.
Yeah, right.
It's only a problem if you end up being outside asking for change. That's when it's a problem. But Dad, go ahead and talk about episode 7. Some takeaways.
Yeah, episode 7 was very interesting. I really enjoyed it above those other episodes. But being the senior statesman of our group tonight, I have to look at the relationship between him and his dad. I mean, this was something that was special because we got a glimpse at what happened when he was a youngster. And what really got me was when he was in 9th grade and he got suspended 3 times that year. And his dad pulled him to the side and said, listen, if you want to play sports, then you got to be serious about your education. And, Tyjun's an educator, so he knows how important education is. But from there, it's like it just skyrocketed because, Jordan went to UNC, Chapel Hill. He played for the Tar Heels. So that's a pretty, legendary school. So you have to have your grades just to play for them, even though you're on a basketball scholarship. So that relationship, to me, was very crucial. And from there, it just showed his drive. We talked about last week how his father belittled him and said, go back in the house, because basically calling him a mama's boy, because you don't know anything about tools and you don't know anything about working on cars, so go back in the house. But then you see this side where the dad is basically, encouraging him that, if you want to be an athlete, you got to put education first. Right. So that piece was very, key to me. And plus his dad was mentoring kids, even though the kids that idolized Michael Jordan, his dad was getting free tickets to get into the game and basically mentoring the kids. So and I knew the relationship was close, but this just basically defined how close it was. I mean, he was always at the games, and one of the comments that really stood out when they won I think the third championship, and they were celebrating. And the dad made a comment, well, you need to renew my contract, basically. Because I'm the one that's, that's motivating them. And we knew Michael Jordan had the motivation, but just the dad. But let me get to the episode as far as his murder. I'm gonna come from a different angle. I know that, Jordan didn't have anything to do with it. But what really stood out to me, and I kind of forgot this part, was that his dad's body was missing for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Then the second thing, it said it was 2 18-year-olds that robbed him and murdered him. Now, I'm like, okay, I understand 18-year-olds, they may see a man on the side of the road asleep, and they want to rob him. But do they have the ingenuity and also the savvy to hide the body, to make sure the car is demolished so it's hard for them to investigate? So my thing is, well, coming from the South and understand about segregation and racism, my thing was, well, were they really looking for the body? First of all. And then the second thing was not that he was involved, but it had to be something even more in depth as far as the murder, as far as the perpetrators. These 2 18-year-old boys happened to run up on the car and they robbed him and murdered him. To me, like I said, the senior state, it's kind of hard for me to swallow. I don't think Jordan had anything to do with it, but I think somebody else other than these 18-year-old boys had something to do with it. They probably took the fall, but something else was going down, And I don't know if it was because of, jealousy because he was from North Carolina, or I don't know if it was because his status and how he was, becoming a multi-millionaire, so something to me, it just didn't add up. I don't think Jordan had anything to do with it. But far as the actual perpetrators and those that completed it, that's what really stood out for me. And the last thing, is the retirement thing. And it was interesting. I forgot that he actually threw the first pitch in the White Sox game.
Right. Then he went up in the booth.
And then he went up in the booth. And it got leaked. It got leaked that he was retiring. And this man had to get in his car and speed away.
People falling after the car like, oh, hold on, Michael, hold on.
Right. 2 weeks later, he's playing baseball. Right.
Right.
It's crazy.
I thought that was interesting, too.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about what you were saying with his death and the different angle of it is, to me, there's no way 2 18-year-old boys would have, first of all, killed him, second of all, took his body and put it somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to that wasn't as simple. It's not a clear-cut murder. I think it's, what we all kind of understood. Yeah. Let's talk about the comment. Episode 7 opens up, and Craig Sager, rest in peace to Craig Sager, king of the jackets, the NBA's shiny suit man, basically. He asks him, how do you feel like the team's performing with the backstabbing that's going on? And Jerry Krause is like, wait, hold on. He got close to the mic too. He was getting serious, like, what backstabbing? What you talking about? Like, we all know that you said Phil wasn't going to be there. And Jerry Krause, rest in peace to him too. He's passed away since then. But he wanted the spotlight. I've said this numerous times. You will not get the spotlight over Jordan. Period. Point blank, exclamation point. You're not gonna get it over Scotty. You're not gonna get it over Dennis Rodman. I mean, there's too many talented people on this team. So he ultimately wanted to tear this thing apart. But I thought that was a great question and a great way to open episode 7. Being able to see Craig Sager ask a hard question. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if I've ever seen Craig Sager basically grilled this dude, during that press conference. But Al, talk about the opening of episode 7. What was your thoughts on that?
I thought it was very interesting. I thought he was running Jerry Krause, and I've said this before on these reviews. He couldn't stay out the way, and when their ego gets in the way, and when their feelings get hurt, hey, you forgot about me. What about me? What about me? He didn't want to. He wanted to break it up. He wanted to have the credit. He pulled a Jerry Jones, but he got.
Yep.
We got to call it like it is. He pulled a Jerry Jones.
Yeah, it's called like it is.
He's a very brilliant man. He's very smart. But he was like, well, I'm the one that went over here and got Tony Kukoc and built this team and found Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson. And he was in his feelings. And when he got called out about it, he felt some type of way. And literally walked away quickly from that press conference.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know that was Craig Sager that asked that question at that press conference. I didn't know. I remember hearing the question. I was like, who? And I was wondering who asked that question. But now I say, now I know who it is. It makes sense because Craig Sager was just doing his job with the flashy suit man. So like that, the flashy suit man. But it just shows selfishness by Jerry Krause. Everything he did that season, coming out having a press conference about this is Phil Jackson's last year. Once again, this is his last year, and we're going to break the team up and courting Tim Floyd at his wedding, and not inviting Phil Jackson to the wedding. It just shows his selfishness basically, because he wanted the limelight.
Exactly, and he could. It's like he couldn't stand it. You're winning championships. You've orchestrated this team, so it's not as if you're just some guy off the street that didn't do anything. But I think we fast forward to now, GMs get more respect. We know more GMs' names now probably than what we knew, I would say, back then. The Toronto GM. You talk about all the different GMs and the impact that they've had on the game. But Dad, talk about that opening to that episode and kind of your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. I rewinded it and just to see if his name was mentioned. and it didn't mention his name, but I like one of the reporters said, "Okay, thanks, Sager," because basically the interview was ended right there with that question.
Yeah, it got shut down pretty quick.
It got shut down. He was so upset. But God bless his soul, rest in peace, man. That's the Easter suit wearing man. He wear Easter suit.
All the pastels, yeah.
Everything, pastel colors.
Whatever you can put on.
Yeah, that was one of Chris Paul's questions. Easter gone, but anyway. Wait, it's just the look on his face, like you said. He was just trapped into a situation where he had to defend himself, but you can kind of tell that it really got next to him, that question, because there was a lot of truth in it. Basically, it was a lot of truth, and things were unraveling, and some other things was going on, but he was in the center of it all, and then they replayed that same episode where he was congratulating the front office and the owners. He said, "This is an organizational win." He didn't mention the players not one time, and I like the way Jordan, he's always egging them on. He was talking about, you can't have a cigar; it may stunt your growth.
Jordan clowns him so much, and then the fact that Jordan was on your team, you had to know something about him. You know that he held grudges. Every single thing you said, he did the exact opposite. So, you coming out and saying anything did not make the situation better. But Ty, go talk about that intro.
I mean, I probably can echo same thing. Everybody else has said so far. You got to see his ego, man. His ego got the best of him. He got called out for it. And when you look at the history, you pointed out about GMs being known more today. There's only a few GMs that's really known now, right? But the reason they're known is because they've had a consistent they have had success consistently while turning over teams. So you pointed out like Toronto, and their GM. You look at Jerry West. Jerry West has been in multiple organizations and built championship teams, right? And you look at Jerry Krause, and it's like, you got Michael Jordan, bro. Like, you have Michael Jordan.
What is the problem?
What's the problem? Like, you have Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I said, you just saw his ego get the best of him. He was out to try to prove something that he really didn't need to prove. Like, dude, you're winning chips. Your fans are happy. The building is rocking. Y'all selling out like before the season even start. Everything is great. What else do you need? Do you really need somebody to put you on a pedestal and say, "Hey, you're the architect of all this"? Like, you have Michael Jordan. We know that the reason you guys are winning is because of Michael Jordan. That's simply what it is. That's
all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
So I said his ego got the best of him, man. It sucks.
Yeah,
but he was a brilliant mind, as everybody said. He was very, very brilliant. He looked like he was able to just spot talent and put talent in the right places and things like that. But it is, again, it's a lot easier when you have a talent like Michael Jordan to build around too.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So let's go to Jordan being, he quit baseball at 17 years old, and he's picked it back up at 33. What type of athletes are able to do stuff like that? It's rare people to say able to do that. He picked up a bat. He was doing his batting practice, the Birmingham Barons. Another interesting part that I thought was interesting was Terry Francona was his coach. We all know Terry Francona.
Yeah.
And we know that there's so many, this is so layered deep. They interviewed, I think, 100 plus people to go through this whole documentary. But let's talk about going into baseball. Courtney, I'll let you talk about this and just what you remember from it, and just how the backstory is the part that I love the most about him going to baseball.
Yeah, the baseball thing was interesting because, we talked about Jordan's retirement, and it was at a White Sox game. That's how it got leaked out. So as you said earlier, it's like he knew, because like I said, him and his dad had a conversation about it. He said his dad always wanted him to play baseball. And Jordan's first love was baseball when he was growing up, before basketball. So they said he was a really good baseball player in high school. So so him transition to baseball, at that time I thought like, okay, maybe he can do it, and he was into AA. And, he was trying to get into the major leagues, but at that time, I guess we thought that just because he was Michael Jordan, he could go out and just transition right to baseball. But it was a hard transition for him. He had that first, 12-game hitting streak, I think,
right.
12-game hitting streak going into it. And then it went into, okay, we're going to get this guy with breaking ball. Let's see if he can hit breaking ball. So now he's striking out. It's like it's not as easy as he thought,
Right,
But
true.
I commend him. I've always commended him for trying something different. He definitely wanted to, what his dad saying, he would like him to play baseball. So he kind of went with his dad's wishes, right after he passed away. So he was doing that, I think, for his dad, and which I commend him for that. I can't really hate on him on that, just trying something different. But like you said, if he thought that he could, if he would have had 50 more games or something like that, he could have maybe made the Major League Baseball. That's hard to say. I don't know. We don't know. But, hey, he tried it. It didn't work out. But he came back and, he said, I'm back. The whole thing.
And he was gassed. I mean, he was gassed. He really talked about how he was tired emotionally, physically, just continuing to go through season after season after season. But he did exactly what he wanted to do. He went out on top. He did what he wanted to do. Al, talk about the baseball aspect. I know you were a little bit younger then, so watching this now, what is that kind of been for you?
What blew my mind was the part that he was still getting his basketball salary while playing baseball. Like, who does that? And the owner was like, man, I understood he was getting underpaid in the game of basketball, so I just paid him his regular salary of basketball while he played baseball. Like,
right.
that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, he played AA ball because of the media. They had to have room to make media for the while he was in Birmingham, because so many people were into Michael Jordan playing baseball. But just the people, the behind the scenes of who Michael worked with, and the drive and the work ethic while he played baseball was just amazing. And had it not been a major league strike, he probably would have played baseball again.
Right.
And between the baseball strike and B.J. Armstrong telling him to come back to the gym.
My man B.J., he was the unsung hero in being Jordan back. If you didn't meet him for lunch, who knows what would happen.
Right. Going out, eating pancakes and saying, come out to the gym and come play ball with us, man. But, man, just like, it just lets you know, like the legendary coach, Terry Francona, and we all know he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, how Michael Jordan has played not just for Phil Jackson as a coach, but he played for Terry Francona for a year, who brought the Red Sox out of the pits, and and rebuilding Cleveland. Like that's something that I just thought about. Like this man played for 2 Hall of Fame coaches in different sports. Sports. That's unheard of. Like that's let alone in just one sport.
Right. Right, and that's a great point of what you just made is, he played for different coaches. But also when he went into baseball, he was all in. It wasn't like he was, I'm just gonna do this like haphazardly. It's not, I'm just gonna do this just because. He went all in. He stayed early, late. And shout out to Jordan's trainer. That personal trainer, give that dude a trophy. Hopefully he was paying him well, because
I'm telling you,
he transferred his body to a basketball body to baseball, and then he was like, I'm gonna go back to basketball. He ended up doing the Space Jam, working out. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy just what this guy did. Another thing I wanted to point out, and Ty, I want you to talk about this too, is you talk about BJ. BJ was on the Bulls. You know he was on the Bulls. He went to the Hornets. You talk about Horace Grant when he went to the Magic. This how the impact that Jordan had was just not on these players being on the Bulls. It was when they left the Bulls that they then started using some of that same stuff. BJ Armstrong got one good game. He got one good one. And then after that, Jordan was like, okay.
Right. I got one.
Yeah. You got your one now. Okay, now go sit down, BJ. Thank you very much. Good job. Give you a little pat on the back. But the impact that the players had after they left the Bulls. But Ty, talk about that.
I mean, I think a lot of players benefited from like Jordan and learning from him, and then going elsewhere and doing things. You look at, like I said, you pointed to BJ Armstrong and like him now being a agent per se, and you know, stuff that he's done. You look at like Horace Grant when he went to Orlando, he became a big part of Orlando, and then he ended up going to the Lakers, right? I think he went to the Lakers and then won some chips with the Lakers, being a veteran presence in there. Steve Kerr, you know, look at how he impacted Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr left the Bulls and went to San Antonio and was the rightful man in San Antonio for him, coming off the bench. Exactly. You know, so you look at how like that mentality, that competitiveness and that like will to win, how he pushed that on to those other players, to like encourage them to like, you know, pass that like that winning mentality. It's a winning mentality, right? It's like when you come into a winning culture and you see somebody do it, you learn from those different aspects. You learn how to, you know, even players that he did, how he impacted Kobe Bryant and like teaching him and things like that. You can see that like throughout the league as they interacted and worked out with Jordan and or played with Jordan, how they went to other teams and just had an impact there as well.
Yeah, so true, so true. Dad, talk about that. I mean, you've seen all of these different players throughout all their time. Even, you know, Craig Hodges, Hodges, I think he just came out with a book. But he was more so impacted as he went the opposite of Jordan, and he really stood out against things going on in the NBA. But so talk about that with the different players that he used to play with.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Let me bring up this one thing about the White Sox before I leave. Wasn't the owner of the Bulls, the owner of the
White Sox.
Right.
Jerry Reinsdorf. Interesting part to how this whole thing went down.
Right. Yeah. So that's why he didn't mind paying him, because he still had him, you know, within
under contract, right?
Under contract, right.
He still had him in his back pocket.
Right. So, you know, he was making AA money, so that wasn't nothing. So basically had to pay him his salary. But as far as the players, you know, I like to, you know, I echo, you know, what Tyjun said about his mentality. But the whole thing that got me was like, they said he was a tyrant, you know, that he was the slave driver, you know, that, you know, Michael didn't play. I mean, this guy was hard. And, you know, like Allen Iverson said, practice. Well, Michael Jordan, you when you came to practice, you came to play. You know, that's basically how he felt, you know, and he felt if you practice hard, it's going to basically roll over into your play during the game. And how he just, you know, drove those guys, you know, like you said, him, you know, Armstrong and Grant, how they carried on to the next level. And Tyjun mentioned, you know, Steve Kerr. That's our guy. You know what I'm saying? That's our guy.
We couldn't tell at all. We couldn't tell.
Like, that's our guy. If you look at the history, he stood up to MJ, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's how he gained MJ respect. Because even though he was smaller, he was lighter. He was lighter in complexion and in weight. But he knew
he knew what was going to go down. He said, I don't care. Kick my butt, whatever. He gained his respect. Then MJ came back and apologized. But, but coming from, the Bay Area's aspect, now you see why, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant didn't mess with Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr was no joke, man. If you're going to stand up against Michael Jordan, who was Draymond Green and Kevin? That's why the whole thing about, Kevin Durant has some issues with Steve Kerr, because Steve Kerr didn't take no mess, even though he was kind of playful and he was kind of joyful, but when he got serious, he got serious. And he basically got that, from MJ. That's what I love about this documentary. I mean, you see all the backstories of how these players, and now he's a coach, of course, but how, it was MJ that pushed him, to be great, and you kind of look at how, some teams aren't at that level or can't get to that level because you don't have a player, you don't have a teammate that's willing to push you. And even Michael Jordan got choked up, man, when they said, well, they say you're a tyrant and that you push people too hard. He got choked up. He said, well, if you don't want to win, if you don't have the balls to suck it up and do what I want you to do in order to win, then go on. Then I don't need you, Yeah. And he was kind of hurt by, I think he was hurt. Like I said earlier, as far as, not only is he prideful, but he was very emotional. And that emotion really comes to the forefront. And he was kind of hurt that some of the players was basically saying some things about him behind his back, when his whole motivation, his whole objectivity was to win championships at all costs.
Nothing else.
He said, if I can do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the biggest thing he said is that I'm not gonna have you do anything that I'm not doing.
Right.
If we running suicides, we running lines, and I'm leading everybody. Right. Or if we playing defense and I'm the hardest at defense, like I think that truly hurt him, because they didn't say anything during the moments. So now they want to say something now. You were winning a lot of championships, and that's hard work to be able to do that continuously. To win 3 championships in a row is not easy at all. I don't care who you are. But Jordan, and one thing Scott Burrell said is that Jordan didn't realize that we weren't on his level, but he wanted to get us as close as possible to his level. And you could see year after year after year, they just kept getting better, kept winning. And it built a dynasty that we've seen glimpses of, but I don't know if we'll ever see a dynasty like that again. Even though we got Warriors fans in here,
but hey, we almost did it. We almost did it.
Almost 3 feet.
Them injuries, man. Injuries killed us.
Not a thing without that ring, man. You got to get that ring. I love Warriors, though. You know it. I love the Warriors too. I like the
Warriors. So we're getting close to the end of part 1. We're talking about episode 7. We're getting ready to get into episode 8. But one thing I loved also about Jordan is that anything could fuel him. George Karl, which we'll talk about this in the next clip. George Karl didn't say hi. And that pissed him off. And he's like, okay, I'm about to score 50 on y'all. I'm going to make sure that y'all don't win this series.
Yep.
What was that guy's name? LeBradford Smith.
Bradford Smith.
Watch the bullets.
Dude?
Bullets.
Somebody Google this guy. What is this guy doing now? He's working security at the This dude probably working at Home Depot or something. But he did not care. Like, that is one thing that I didn't really understand. I just thought Jordan I thought he was just naturally gifted and that he just played his best every single night. But no, it wasn't that. He had things in his mind, like that LeBradford Smith thing wasn't even true. He said, I just needed that to get up and beat the bullet. I mean, it's like that. You got to be a special type of person. Al, talk about the mentality just about Jordan, just winning at any cost. It didn't matter.
Man, so the ending of episode 7, he said, winning has a price and leadership has a price. And I think I'm gonna print that out and put that in my house somewhere, because that it's a price to do this type of stuff. It's also a price when you have a losing mindset, when you don't want to learn.
True.
So whatever you do in life has a price. And he said, for Jordan, just with that mindset to find things just to get up for certain games, he was a special leader. Jordan is just a unique, special,
rare breed
leader and doing stuff and how he carried himself on and off the court. And you can even see the people who his teammates and how that's impacted them now 20 years later and everything that they're doing in life. They're much better people because of a push by a Michael Jordan. You know, that's why you have the Kobe Bryants of the world, because there was the push of the Michael Jordan type mentality. Like, has a price. Leadership has a price. And then what type of leader are you? Are you the leader that is laissez-faire, or are you type of leader that is that we're gonna win no matter what? I want to win. And if I lose, I'm not losing. I'm learning from what I lost. So how I can get better.
Right. All right. So we got a couple seconds left of episode 7. Give me one word, everybody, from episode 7, how you would describe it. Let me see. I'll start with you, Courtney.
I'm back.
All right, Dad.
Oh, he took mine. Oh man. I was hoping they would play James Brown, you know, with he said I'm back. I hope they play James Brown. But I guess the other one would be the Bradford Smith when he said oh, you had an off night. You had an off
Good
night,
game.
MJ.
Good game. All right. So that was Dad's one word. Al, give me your one word from episode 7. Oscar?
When I mean Oscar, I mean Oscar show. Let me say it like that. Oscar documentary deserves an Oscar.
Okay. All right. Ty?
One word. I'm going to go with emotional.
Okay.
Emotional.
Good. All right, let's get into episode 8 of The Last Dance. You know, this episode opens up with him coming back, wearing number 45, playing in the Garden, scoring 55. I mean, after not playing for that amount of time, and again, shout out to B.J. Armstrong, the unsung hero, like that, like those community college commercials. Man, you're not doing that anyway. You might as well just come on here and sit around at practice and see what we're doing. So Jordan sat around for long enough. He got that itch, started practicing more and more. Also, the strike. If the strike didn't happen, I don't think Jordan would have came back as soon because his mind would have been occupied on baseball. So very, very interesting how that sequence went. So let's get into episode 8. Courtney, give me your thoughts on episode 8 and how he came back wearing 45.
Yeah, man, that was an interesting time too. I remember when he actually came back. Me and my cousins, we were at church, and now the game was at 1:00. They played the Pacers, so we're anticipating like, oh man, I don't know if church is gonna get out. We know how churches get. We know how black churches get sometimes. It's like, okay, we stand at 2 or 3 o'clock, so we kind of snuck out. Me and my cousin, we snuck out from church to go to the laundromat. There was a laundromat across the street. They had TV, so we ended up watching the game on the laundromat from church. We got in some trouble, but we ended up getting to watch the game. But that whole thing was crazy how it happened. Like the comeback and the way it was, and like I said, Jordan was still in baseball shape. He wasn't even in basketball shape, so you knew he kind of was going to struggle a little bit. But just for him being back after the year with Scottie Pippen and all that went down with the year before, and they went to the playoffs, and then they were struggling that year. I think they were over 500. They were 34-31 when Jordan came back. So it was just the pandemonium. It was exciting. I loved every bit of it. Like I said, we had to watch that. And then 6 days later, he dropped a double nickel on the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. And that's like you said, I'm back. And Jordan was back with that 55 points against the Knicks.
Yeah, and I like the background on changing from 45, a new beginning, but it didn't feel natural. So then he went back to 23. You talk about that Magic series. But Ty, talk about, you know, coming back and what all that was like, you know. I think you're on mute. Hold on a second.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm off. Yeah, I think for me, man, it was it fueled the excitement of basketball again, man. We had missed him for, you know, again, 18 months. You hadn't seen no Jordan. And Pippen was balling.
He was.
Pippen was balling, but it wasn't Jordan, man. It wasn't the highlights. It wasn't that intensity that you know that he has on the court. So when the announcement came that he was coming back, I was personally juiced. I was super juiced. I was ready to see him ball. And, you know, the tongue out, the up and under layups, you know, the fadeaway. Like, I was ready for it all again, man. So I know for me, you know, I think I was like, when he came back, I was in 8th grade, I believe. Yeah, 8th grade, man. Yeah, 8th grade. I think I was outside, like, trying to pull that fadeaway. I couldn't do it, but I was trying really hard back then.
We all tried, yeah.
You know, I can do it now, but I couldn't do it back then. But man, it was amazing, man, to see him come back, and as you pointed out, him coming back with the 45. I do remember that being really, really weird. And if you were into shoes, he actually had those 11s with the 45 on the back.
Right.
People don't notice. People don't really realize that that the 11s came out when he had first came back. So, yeah, man, it was one of them great times, man. Just kind of see him coming back and bring the game back, bring that excitement back, pandemonium, and all that. So
yeah. I'll talk about that coming back.
Interesting times, because everybody was trying to get the ring, and the Knicks were on the rise in the East. The Orlando Magic was the truth, and then you had the Indiana Pacers. And then when Jordan comes back, it's like, okay, people had so much respect for Jordan. It was like, yo, we got to get this ring. Like, we either get it now, either now or never.
Right.
And then you got to understand the Bulls were, like, struggling at that time, too. Even though Scotty was the man, you know, they didn't have that power forward presence after Horace Grant had left and went to Orlando. And just Michael come back into the fold, kind of, you know, he was just getting his feet right and getting his position and just trying to understand, you know, what's going on and what's happening. And the part when they showed the playoffs, when they had Horace Grant being carried off the floor, you know, Mike didn't forget that.
Shouldn't have did that.
Y'all gonna carry the greatest right now. Okay, well, I'm going to remember that. And then even the part in the series where they had, it was game 1 and he was still 45. And I guess one of the I think it was Nick Anderson made the comment.
Anderson, yep.
And, you know, well, you're not, it's not 23. You know, so he came back game 2 and put up 23. And I was like, oh, this. I said, y'all, and they almost woke him up in that series after Nick Anderson said what he said. So just a true athlete and a true dedication to the game and still, you know, getting back in shape. You know, he was a little rusty, but the East, it was just interesting times in the Eastern Conference. I remember between Orlando, Indiana, New York,
right.
you know,
Charlotte,
Miami. I mean, they had some teams coming up, man, and when he came back, he's like, oh, I think everybody's like, well, I don't know. We want to win it, but dog, I don't know.
I mean,
back in town.
I mean, it's interesting because I just remember that time, and I was just like, the Knicks is gonna finally get one. That's all in my head. That's all. Like,
that's
the
what
Knicks is
everybody
gonna
was
finally
thinking.
Get one.
Finally.
And in Orlando, huh?
But the New York Knicks was stacked. Like, I remember they had Larry Johnson,
Starks.
Starks, Mason.
Houston. The list goes on with that squad.
They was loaded. They was loaded. And Orlando just came out of nowhere on them. It was like you had the Knicks up here, and it was like, okay, the Knicks is finally gonna get that opportunity to get that ring. You know, and Orlando was like, I'm here. And then Jordan was like, I'm back. And it was like, oh.
It was like you had that one little smidget. You should have took advantage of that.
Slither.
You had it. You should have did it. That was your only spot. Dad, talk about 45 coming back. which it was really weird with him wearing 45. So I'm glad he went back to 23 because that would have been a weird transition to the rest of his career. But go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I know that was definitely a weird situation. But then it goes back again, to his dad, man. I mean, he wore that when he was playing, ball when he was a youngster, and he was basically wanted to honor his dad again, so he wore it because of that. And but it's something about the Mecca, man. I'm telling you, it just brings out the best in superstars. I mean, his fourth game? His fifth game back, and he scores 55. It's just something about playing against the Knicks, something about Madison Square Garden. This brings out the best. But yeah, it was kind of weird, seeing him in that number. But it was good to see, the backdrop when you look at the documentary, how it was something else that also, honored his dad. And the same thing, with the Magic. He was, because the Magic, they wasn't no scrubs either. They had Penny, Hardaway, and they had Shaq. I mean, they had some ballers too. And it was interesting how, once he said, well, I'm putting this 23 back on. And they ended up losing against, the Magic in the playoff that year. But that drove him. It was always something that drove, MJ to be the best he can be. So he knew he had to get back in basketball shape. And that drove him to get back into basketball shape. And the guy, man, was just relentless when it comes to wanting to be on top, wanting to be number one, And so that was the main thing I took out of that number 45.
Yeah, and the Jordans that came out, which it had, those the same ones that had the list on the bottom of all his accomplishments. I think that's the same ones.
Right.
Yeah, man, that was the Jordan, the legacy of Jordan shoes. They need to make a whole separate documentary just of that. I think that needs to happen because there's so many different shoes.
I got grandkids bursting in on me.
You all right? You all right? Hey,
all
Prince.
Right. Sorry about that. Say hi.
We love the kids. BS3 Radio loves the kids. All the kids.
Okay. Go to Omar.
Hey, Kylie. Hey, Prince. So, coming back, we talked about Steve Kerr and Jordan. How Steve Kerr stood up. And when Jordan came back, he was saying, y'all in here thinking that y'all won all these championships. Y'all haven't done anything. All y'all scrubs. Jordan was just flat out honest, like, look, your mentality is not where it needs to be. Y'all need to work a lot harder than what y'all working. But Courtney, talk about that, just how he knew that the team was not where it's supposed to be, but he was going to do whatever it took. And Bill Winnington coming in and saying, hey, I'm ready to do whatever you want me to do. I thought that was great to hear from him because he didn't really have that big of a role.
Yeah, that just shows Jordan's relentlessness, that competitiveness that we always talked about. We talked about him just being this ruthless leader, but that was right after that Orlando series where Orlando was celebrating and Jordan took notes. He's like, okay, I want to get back into my basketball shape because coming off that baseball, he was on an 18-month layoff, coming back and then wearing that 45. He said it wasn't looking right. So he said, okay, I didn't play with Steve Kerr. I didn't play with Judd Buechler, Bill Winnington. These guys are coming in like they've already won championships. They didn't win anything yet. I put that blood, sweat, and tears on, I've done this before. So Jordan just wanted to let them know, like, look, I came back to win at all costs. I came back to win championships. That's it. I've been through this before. I've been through these wars with Detroit and in the Lakers in the finals. I've been through all this. So you guys better get on board right now, regardless of what's going to happen. So, Phil Jackson, being the mastermind that he is, the Zen master, as they call him, kind of said, okay, we want to put Steve Kerr on Jordan, get under his skin. And as we talked about in the last episode, we said Steve Kerr's competitive too. So Kerr was like, look, I'm competitive. I'm just not on the level of Jordan. I know this, but I'm going to get on his skin. So the story that I think that all of us have heard, we thought that Jordan just punched him. We didn't know Steve Kerr actually started the fight by punching him or elbowing him in the chest.
Yeah.
So Jordan went off and hit him. Like he said, okay, you got this little guy on me trying to guard me or whatever.
Help us against the Knicks.
Yeah, like, come on, man. He can't handle the Knicks physicality. He can't handle Orlando's physicality, like this guy. But I think it proved that Steve Kerr stood up to Jordan. That's how they built their relationship, and he respected that. Jordan said, he ended up apologizing afterwards, but he said, look, you guys just got to get on board. And Bill Wennington, like you said, Bill Wennington said, I'm ready to ride Superman's cape. Yeah. So he jumped on it, and it just proved how their practices were, how Jordan, like I said, how much of a ruthless leader he was, but he brought the best out of everybody, and he got a lot of respect for Steve Kerr. So, the fight, it happens. Like Steve Kerr said, it happens all the time. It happens in practices all the time in all sports. So it just showed how competitive and how ruthless Jordan was.
Yeah. Now let's go back to Space Jam. He's filming Space Jam, and he's like, I got to get in basketball shape. So they're like, okay, we'll just build you an arena or whatever that was. I guess it was a tent,
like a dome,
a tent court.
A dome, yeah.
What they was doing? They built him like Universal Soul Circus with a court and a floor and all that. They're playing games at night. He's filming during the day. Reggie Miller's like, this dude must have been a zombie. Like, I don't know how he did it. Again, that just goes back to who he was. And he was scouting players on the set of Warner Brothers with Space Jam. We all know the Space Jam Jordan's one of the classic shoes that we'll ever know. But the backstory going into Space Jam I thought was great. Ty, talk about that, just how he was doing so much behind the scenes that I don't think we realized until just yesterday.
Yeah, so just like you said, I think I didn't know about all the stuff that was going on as far as like Space Jam and him trying to work himself into basketball shape, him having these big basketball games with other players, recruiting other players to come in to work out with him and refine his game, all while shooting during the day, right? Like, again, that just shows like his whole dedication, his relentlessness to his craft, right? And that's the type of guy you want to play with. Like,
exactly.
I don't care how much of I don't care how much you dislike the dude, as far as like personally. When you're talking about being on the court, you want to play with a guy who is going to get in the trenches with you. I played basketball. I played high school and college basketball. The guys that I loved the most was the guys who were sitting with me after practice, working out, guys who were like willing to dive on the floor, like do all the dirt. Like, those are the guys that you love. It's not the guy that necessarily scores like 30 a game. It's the guys who do the dirty work, right? You love those guys. You know what I'm saying? So, essentially, I mean, that's what you saw, right? You saw that dog in him. You know what I'm saying? You saw him try to bring that dog out of everybody else as well. But like I said, I thought it was dope, man. I loved, seeing his workout, seeing him. I don't know how he got Warner Brothers to build him a gym. They literally built him. They built him like a gym outside. Yeah, like a makeshift gym, so he could work out. Like it was a part of his contract. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do this film. Y'all go ahead and build me a gym over there. I'm gonna work out. But Jordan did stuff like that. I mean, it's just like, when you think about his contract, he had that for the love of game, the love of the game clause in his contract, where he can go play pickup basketball whenever he wanted to, and nobody could
say anything to him.
Yeah, like that. That's dope, man. Like that was dope. I thought that was fantastic to see.
Yeah. Al, talk about Space Jam and the pickup games, man. How you felt when you were watching that?
Man, I thought that was a greenhouse that was built. Looked like with a big old
like you had some flowers in there.
Yeah, but just all the stars that had the amount of respect that came out to come play basketball with Michael Jordan in the gym. That had to be an honor. So for Michael to call you to say, hey, come out and come play ball with me. That was honor. And then the work ethic. 7 a.m. you have to go shoot. Then you go work out with your personal trainer for 2 hours. Then you go back and shoot some more movies. And then from 7 to 10 o'clock at night, you're actually playing pickup games. Then you have to go at night memorize your lines.
Yeah.
It's back to the dedication part. And even like the lesson that I learned is that, how dedicated am I to my craft of what I do? How dedicated is all of us to the craft of what we do and what we enjoy? Are we serious about it or are we not serious about it? Is it a hobby? Michael was saying, hey, this is not a hobby. This is this is what I want to do. I'm playing ball people are working hard to come see me, so it's my job to give them something that they will never forget, and everything else just follows after that. If I put the work in, this I'm going to reap the benefits of it. And
Right.
so, and just looking at Space Jam, I was like, wow. And I mean, this man barely sleeps. This man probably slept maybe 4 or 5 hours, if that, each night. And just the dedication. And still, when I remember when Space Jam came out, and I had the video. I used to watch that video all the time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I remember the soundtrack. Yeah, man.
Oh, soundtrack was good.
But Dad, talk about that Space Jam and all that during that period.
Yeah, it was interesting because of the sacrifices that not only he made, but his family had to make.
Yeah,
because his wife, his children. I mean, because he's basically in LA, filming and practicing, sleeping 4 hours, a day. So I know they didn't have any time for them. I don't know if they was able to come down and hang out on the set. They didn't mention that or go into that aspect at all. But I know that was really hard for them. And we was watching it. Me and Mom was watching it together, Trey. And she said, why would they do that? I said, well, that's MJ, baby.
He do what he want when he want.
MJ.
He do what he want. He can get
you
what
loving
he
them
want.
checks, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He said, well, if you want me to be in this movie, this is what I need, and then for the players to come down and him, scrimmaging with these players, man, and, because if you're practicing with MJ, it's just like a game, basically.
Yeah.
They were practicing hard and for him to get back in shape. But it was interesting, like you said, his agent or his trainer, warned him, that, baseball shape is different from basketball shape. And it's going to take a while. And it was interesting how he was saying how, as far as his upper body, strength, he had to energize his upper body strength, had to work out. And, we all know that, basketball shape or playing, basketball full court is a totally different type of shape.
Mm-hmm.
Any other sport, when you're running up and down 48 minutes, nonstop. And so for him to do that, but Space Jam, I remember when the movie came out and, we got the VHS, recorded and played it over and over and over again. And it was interesting how the players, they depicted the players as far as the monsters. And, I think Ewing was one of the monsters and Charles Barkley was one of the monsters. So it was kind of interesting how we found out now that they actually was, playing together in the gym. And at the same time that they was, making a movie. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. It just goes back to show that if you truly want to be great, you have to think on a different level. You have to act on a different level. You can't just do what everybody else does. And that's why there's only a limited amount of top tier athletes. That's the reason why, Jordan went after those guys. That's why he went after Scott Burrell, Kwame Brown. You know how he trashed Kwame Brown when he was with the Wizards, which I hope they touch on that. I hope they
Oh my God.
give us just a little bit of that Wizards period right there. That would be great. But it just goes to who he was, and I think we're learning so much about him because he didn't seem like that person that would lay it all out there when he was playing. But now since he's not playing, I'll probably learn more about Jordan now and during this period of his life than I've ever learned. Because he's not focused on him playing, which was his job. That's what his job. That was his morning, his noon, and his night, and that's what we've seen. So let's talk about the 72-10 team, and how that team, they were saying, I think that was Bushler that said he was looking at the schedule and he was like, or Scotty was telling him, I don't think we're gonna win a game for the next. I think we're not gonna lose a game for the next 3 weeks. I'm like, what type of team can look at that? Besides the Warriors, we know we can fast forward now. And talk about that. But let's have this conversation real quick. 72-10, 73-9. Now, the one team won a championship, the other one didn't. Let's talk about this. We'll start with you, Al. Compare the two, and which one do you think was better?
Man, you got to go with the 72-10 Chicago Bulls. And I'm gonna say two things. Number one, we all know on here because they finished out and won the ring. Number one. Number two, you gotta look at. I have to respect the era that the Bulls were in, where you still had some type of. It was more of a physical type of game. It was more defense. Now, don't get me wrong. I respect Golden State and the Warriors and how they've innovated the game with the 3-point shot and how they were shooting people out of the gym. But that 72-10 team to win that amount of games the way that they won it, and when you remember earlier in the series, Jordan figured out, I'm gonna let everybody else play, and then I'm gonna come in here and win. And when it's time for me to put my cape on, I'm going to put my cape on and do what I got to do.
Exactly.
And just the pure dominance that they had at that time, and then to finish it off with a ring was unbelievable. Now, there is the Warriors 73-9. They didn't finish. They didn't finish, which I think they should have beat Cleveland in 2016. No doubt about it. But I got to give credit to what credit is due. 72-10, the best play on the court. Everybody doing their part. Man,
yeah.
There will never be another team like that.
No, I just think you think of all the talent that they had at each position, and to have Rodman, who did not care about scoring, that was his main role, was to rebound. You add Scotty, which was as a top 50 player of all time. I mean, I think when we fast forward, I think we can have this conversation probably better because the Warriors, they're probably going to win more championships, I believe. So I think right now, I'm gonna go ahead and still go with the Bulls. I'm going to still do that in my opinion. But Ty, talk about it.
As much as I would like to go with my Warriors, because my Warriors did have a fantastic 73-9 season. For me, it isn't the fact that they didn't win the ring. I'm just looking at the way those teams matched up, and the one thing that stood out about the Bulls was their defensive ability. At all 5 positions, right? Like they could literally switch everything on defense. Everybody could play defense on that starting 5. Ron Harper, which was a really good defender. Right. Jordan and Pippen, which were all defense. Rodman, which was all defense. And they had Longley and Winningson back there just beating people up, right? Like they just beat people up in the back, But defensively is where that team made their mark. It necessarily wasn't the offense. I mean, Jordan, you knew what you was getting offensively with Jordan. You always got that with Jordan. But defensively is where they made their mark. And I think that's what separates them from that 73-9 Warriors team. That Warriors team was good defensively, but they were good playing defense when they were like miles ahead, right? And they could run off on games. They start scoring. They could score at will. But when those games became really, really close, that's when you start to see like chinks in the Warriors' armor. In compared to like the Bulls, where the Bulls live for those close games. They kind of like put that dagger in you. They was like, yeah, gave you a little hope, take it away now, type thing. So that's my biggest difference. And then to be real, I think that the team the following year, that Warriors team, the next year with KD, is actually better than that 73-9 team.
True.
So it was way better. So.
True. All right, go ahead, Courtney. Talk about that 72-10 team, 95-96.
I agree with Tyjun Mack on this one. Definitely. I think it's definitely the Bulls. 2 factors to me. One, Michael Jordan. I think when you get against any team that you compare to the Bulls, Jordan is always the X factor because there's no one that can guard him. And when he wanted to put his will out there, he's going to do it. He's going to score. He's going to dominate however he wants to do it. I think that's the X factor to anything. That's like when we compare the Dream Team to other teams too. Like when it's like they got Michael Jordan. Like this guy lives for these moments against good teams, against these good teams. And it's no slight to the Warriors; they were great. But I agree with Tyjun too about I think that Warriors team. Now they would have had Kevin Durant. Okay, now I think it's a better comparison. But I think the last factor is that defense. When the Bulls needed to lock up the way, when they needed to make stops, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, Harper, they lock up when they need to. So like I said, they can switch on anything. Like if Curry and it was trying to run that, the pick and roll like the dangerous at, okay, we got Pippen on you now. We got Rodman on you that can guard guys, that can guard those type of guys. So I think the defensive, and don't forget, Tony Kukoc wasn't a great defender at all, but the guy brought offense. Like this guy, he just said,
off the
Corey
bench.
Sensation, the Corey Sensation, Tony touching the clutch, man. I mean, come on. This guy he hit buckets. Like, so yeah, but those are the key factors to me. Jordan was a key factor, and defensively, when they needed to shut teams down, they'll shut a team down with those guys. So yeah, defense and Jordan was key factors for me. 72-10 is better than the 73-9 Warriors.
All right, elder statesman, we're gonna bring it to you.
Well, you got to finish it off. I mean, I was a Bulls fan before I was a Warriors fan, and MJ is my homeboy. So I gotta go up there. I gotta go with my homeboy. But yeah, you got to finish it off. But let me just throw this in there. I mean, it was 21 years between the 95 and 2016 season, and no other team did it.
Right.
So basically, it's an accomplishment that wasn't that easy achievable. Now, the things about the Warriors is that it was a totally different era, I understand, when it comes to the physicality, but also a totally different era when it comes into the three-point shot. Because, a lot of commentators will agree with me. You have the best backcourt that ever teamed up in the history of the NBA. And you're talking about Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And when these two guys were on, they were unstoppable. It was over.
It was a wrap.
And they didn't run. They didn't run the triangle, but Steve Kerr had an offense that was very similar to where the ball was constantly moving. I mean, you got guys that's averaging, 30 plus assists every game, and then you got a point guard like Steph Curry that's shooting, jump shots off of the pick and rolls and basically can handle the ball. And then you got Klay Thompson. That game he scored 37 and a quarter.
Right.
He only took 4 dribbles or something ridiculous like that.
Six. Was that 6-game Klay or game 4 Klay?
Right. So,
that was just a regular season game.
Either Klay, right?
Yeah. Whatever Klay.
Whatever Klay.
Yeah. Right. So you're looking at, when you look at the defense of the Bulls, I can't even debate that. When you look at that defense and how they lock people down, especially MJ and Scottie Pippen and Rodman, how they lock people down. But when you look at the offense of the Warriors, I mean, that 2016 season, man, nobody has ever seen anything like that before in history. And because they was able to blow people out, you look at the average games that Steph Curry even played the fourth quarter. They was blowing people out because of the three.
It was like Alabama. Like
it was like Alabama.
Right.
So
I mean, he averaged 30 points in 30 minutes. So
in 30 minutes. So the offense was so potent, and because they brought in a totally new era with the three, but they didn't finish it. And if they didn't finish it, if Draymond Green didn't get suspended,
that's true. That was it right there, man.
I think if Bogut don't get hurt, I think that series they end up winning that series.
Right.
I think Bogut really hurt them that series. So
but I look at the competition too. The competition was more stiffer and the type of play was much more physical. Given all of that, you got to lean towards the Bulls.
Yeah. All right, so we got a couple minutes left in today's episode of The Last Dance, episode 7 and 8 recap. So let's go to the very end. MJ versus GP. Man, that had to have been one of the best matchups ever. We already know the Bulls won. One of the best defenders. They had Sean Kemp, which was like, I guess you would say, the DeAndre Jordan of during that time.
Blake Griffin.
Blake Griffin. Yeah, true. But I thought that was great to hear. I love Gary Payton. I love the way he played. It was great to hear him. Then it was great to see Jordan with the full head back laugh. I had no problems with GP. GP was just over there, and I was doing what I did, and it didn't matter. So let me give me your quick thoughts. We'll start with you, Al. That last finals that they showed, episode 8, beating Seattle.
thought that the Bulls were going to sweep Seattle. Now, I have a confession to make. I was cheering for the underdog, and I was like, man, it'll be good to let the Sonics win. Just let the Sonics win.
Just let them. David Stern, please.
But you know, the key strategy that George Karl had in his back pocket was not putting Gary Payton on Michael Jordan in games 1 and 2 and in the beginning of the series, because Gary Payton, we all know here how great a defensive player he was, how much of a trash talker he was, and how much great pride Gary Payton took in defense. And just that part, I said, and Gary Payton, you know, he was confident. Yeah, all we gotta do is just wear him down. Hit him in the ribs, wear him down. And then for Jordan to come back and laugh, said, man, there was no problem whatsoever.
Right.
It's just mind-boggling because, you know, Gary Payton was all along like we all know in here what type of player Gary Payton is. Gary Payton runs his mouth, but he backs it up though too. Right. And for him, if Jordan come out and say, no, he was wrong about that. He was wrong.
There was plenty of times that we heard Jordan say that somebody was wrong.
Yeah.
All right, Ty, let me go to you. Give me quick 30 seconds.
Quick 30 seconds. Gary Payton had a false hope, man. That's what Jordan gave. He gave false hope, man. You know what? I don't. You know, Gary can think that him guarding MJ the whole series would change the series. I doubt it. They would have still lost. Maybe, you know, but maybe they don't jump out to a 3-0 lead. Maybe they jump out to a 2-0 lead instead. You know, I don't know. But yeah, it was false hope, man. You know, and Jordan knew it. Jordan was too big. He was too big. He just had too much size and skill for Gary. Gary tried to give him problems by keeping the ball away from him and keeping him off his spots. But eventually Jordan would have got there, and it would have been over anyway.
Yeah. All right, Courtney.
Yeah, I agree with everything both of them said, man. I mean, this is going to be the new Jordan meme. It's not going to be the crying meme. It's going to be that laughing meme now. You know? but GP, I mean, greatest defender he was. I mean, he was a great defender, real great defender. But he, like I say, he was too small. He could be physical, but he was just a little too small. They would have figured it out anyway. Phil Jackson was too good of a coach not to, you know, even if Gary Payton would have took Jordan out for a little bit, Jordan would have figured it out, use his size, use his smarts. And it might have been not 3-2, probably have been 4-2 or 4 instead of 4-2. They would have probably won in 7 anyway. So yeah, the Bulls were just much better.
Right, true. All right, Dad, bring us on home.
Oh, okay. Well, basically the thing started off on the wrong foot when George Karl disrespected MJ and the rest of us. You know, you need to shake the man's hand or acknowledge the man or something like that. And I love the way Gary Payton, you know, told George Karl, screw you. I'm gonna guard him the rest of the series, right, you know, because he didn't want him to guard him because he wanted him to focus on his offense. Right. So it was you look at you know, George Karl make 2 mistakes, disrespected MJ, and then told, you know, Gary Payton the glove what he couldn't do. Right. But I love that series. It was a great opportunity to see how regardless of, you know, what you put up in front of him, he's gonna accomplish and be victorious.
Right. All right. Well, that is episode 7 and 8. We will be back 9 and 10. This is it. We're right here at the finale. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to click that bell. You know, everybody on YouTube says that, but do this because I'm saying it and because everybody else is here. But appreciate everybody. Al, peace out to you, Tyjun, Courtney, and Pops. Thank you all for coming on.
For sure.
All right. Thanks.
Later.
All right. My pleasure, man.